this the beginning of a new era in naval and aerial warfare over Crimea? On October 6, 2025, at precisely 23, two luminous fireballs tore across the pre-dawn sky above Saki Airport in Novofedorivka, signaling the start of an unprecedented Ukrainian operation targeting Russia's southern flank. This was not a spontaneous strike. It was a masterfully orchestrated sequence of decoys, UAV swarms, and missile drones, designed to expose and overwhelm one of the most sophisticated air defense networks in the world. The sirens at the Russian Black Sea Fleet Command Center in Sevastopol blared as dozens of targets appeared on radar, each representing a carefully planned threat, forcing the Russian Integrated Air Defense System, IADS, to react instantly. Lieutenant General Anatoly Orlov, in command of Crimea's defenses, ordered the engagement of all incoming targets, unaware that each missile launched played into Ukraine's broader deception strategy. The first wave consisted of 48 low-cost, high-speed UAVs decoys engineered not for destruction, but for intelligence. Modified commercial drones and reconfigured UJ-22s saturated the airspace, forcing S-400 Panzer S-1 and Tor M1 batteries to expend millions of dollars in interceptors against inexpensive drones valued in mere tens of thousands. Every launch provided Ukrainian SIGINT teams precise data on radar frequency, engagement timelines, and battery locations. This was intelligence collected in real time, allowing Ukrainian planners to map Russian responses as if playing chess, each decoy a deliberate bait to reveal the opponent's hand. According to defense news analysts, this method reflects a growing trend in asymmetric warfare, where economic attrition and precision data collection outweigh brute force strikes. Behind the veil of chaos, Ukraine's primary strike force advanced. From secret launch sites near Odessa, 2 Peklo missile drones and 4 UJ-26 bomber drones carrying 120-kilogram warheads navigated hundreds of kilometers at varying speeds. 4 AQ-400s launched closer to the front, converged with near-perfect timing to overwhelm Russian decision-making. Traveling at altitudes of 30 to 50 meters above the Black Sea, they exploited the radar horizon limits, while Krasuka-4 electronic warfare systems meant to jam GPS signals were rendered ineffective through onboard inertial navigation systems. As CNN military correspondent Jack Newman noted, Ukraine's engineers demonstrated a new level of sophistication, neutralizing electronic countermeasures with software and precision guidance that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. This first part of the operation illustrates a larger strategic narrative, using cheap, expendable drones to force a costly, high-tech defense into action, effectively turning Russia's multi-billion-dollar air defense network into a liability. With Russia reacting to decoys, the corridors to critical logistical and military targets in Crimea were now exposed. Viewers might ask, could this method signal a shift in how air dominance is contested in modern warfare, where cost asymmetry dictates the outcome more than firepower? As Ukrainian operators pressed onward, the night held its breath, setting the stage for a devastating, coordinated assault on Crimea's infrastructure. How far could this strategic deception go before Russia adapts its doctrine to counter it? How can a swarm of drones bring an entire military logistics network to its knees as Ukraine's main strike units advanced? The synchronized assault on key Crimean infrastructure unfolded with chilling precision. The Bober Peklo and AQ-400 Scythe drones executed a coordinated plan targeting the Ivazovskaya train station and the 18th Combined Arms Army Ammunition Depot. This operation wasn't merely about destruction, it was about paralyzing Russian supply chains and severing the arteries of the southern front. 3 AQ-400 Scythe UAVs, each carrying 30-kilogram warheads, approached the railway hub under the cover of the decoy swarm's chaos. The first struck the administrative building, and signaling center immediately crippling command and control. The other two disabled critical railway switches, rendering the line to Feodosia terminal inoperative. Defense News noted that such precision strikes on dual-use infrastructure are increasingly recognized as force multipliers capable of halving the operational tempo of entire brigades without engaging them directly. Simultaneously, the ammunition depot in central Crimea became the epicenter of a deadly sequence. 4 bomber drones, each carrying 50-kilogram warheads, and a heavy Piclo drone with a 120-kilogram payload, targeted concentrations of artillery shells, Grad rockets, and S-300 missiles. By leveraging preloaded satellite imagery and advanced imaging guidance, the drones focused on the most densely packed storage areas. The result was an instantaneous chain reaction. Explosions erupted in massive fireballs. Seismic shocks radiated kilometers away, and an entire 18th Army stockpile was obliterated in seconds. Military analysts from Jane's Defense Weekly described the strike as a textbook example of precision logistics warfare, where timing and intelligence supplant sheer firepower. What made this operation particularly effective was timing. The bomber drones, slower but heavily armed, were launched earlier to synchronize with faster Peklo missiles. Approaching low over the Black Sea, they remained below radar detection, while Krasuka 4 jamming systems failed to compromise inertial navigation. This allowed each UAV to reach its target with millimeter precision. According to a NATO operations analyst, Ukraine demonstrated how a layered multi-platform approach can defeat even the densest air defense network when carefully coordinated. It forces an opponent to waste high-value interceptors and exposes command vulnerabilities. As the night progressed, the combination of decoys and lethal UAVs systematically dismantled Russian logistical capabilities in southern Crimea. Russian reports claiming the destruction of 40 UAVs were technically correct, but strategically meaningless. The critical targets had been struck. The operation highlighted the economic and psychological asymmetry. Millions spent on interceptors could not replace destroyed ammunition depots or the critical rail links now severed. The question arises, if inexpensive UAVs can force such disproportionate damage, how should future NATO planning adjust to counter similar asymmetric strategies? The unfolding chaos in Crimea was only the beginning. The next stage would strike at the heart of Russia's energy lifeline, testing both strategy and resolve. Could the heart of Crimea's energy supply be brought to a standstill in one night? At the core of Ukraine's October 6th operation lay the Feodosia Sea oil terminal, a linchpin of Russian military logistics and civilian energy distribution. By 01:45, a fleet of 10 UAVs, 4 AQ-400 Scythe, 4 UJ-26 bomber, and 2 heavy Peklo missile drones approached the terminal with surgical precision. Panzer batteries focused on earlier decoys attempted to engage the incoming bomber drones, firing 57 E6 missiles at speeds exceeding 1,300 meters per second. Yet the UAV's mini EW pods blurred targeting signals, neutralizing electronic defenses and creating openings for the main strike force. As noted by a senior analyst at Al Jazeera, the operation represents a paradigm shift. Disposable drones, high precision and synchronized timing can outmatch even the most sophisticated air defense arrays. The first AQ-400 Scythe penetrated the outer perimeter, striking a fuel tank to act as a penetrator and weaken the structure. Seconds later, a second Scythe and a Peklo missile executed a simultaneous strike, generating an initial inferno that lit the night sky. The sequential targeting strategy ensured that each explosion amplified the next, ultimately igniting the third tank through heat and shockwave chain reaction. By 02:30, thermal satellite imagery from NASA's FIRM system confirmed massive fires visible across dozens of kilometers, while the evacuation of 250-300 nearby civilians underscored the dual-use risks inherent in such infrastructure. Reuters later reported that emergency services struggled to contain the blaze, highlighting how a single operation could cascade into both military and civilian crises. The terminal itself was far from ordinary. With a capacity of 250,000 tons, it supplied diesel for T-72B3 and T-90M tank units, jet fuel for Su-25 Frogfoot aircraft, and marine fuel for Caliber missile launches from Black Sea Fleet frigates. Jane's Defense Weekly estimated that disruption at Feodosia could reduce the operational tempo of a tank brigade by nearly 50%, delay air sorties, and compromise naval patrol schedules. Beyond the immediate military impact, the strike also amplified the civilian energy crisis. Gas stations across Crimea were already operating at 50% capacity, and the sudden loss of the terminal accelerated fuel rationing, long lines, and price inflation. The integrated nature of military and civilian logistics made this dual-use strike both efficient and strategically devastating. Western military observers emphasized the psychological dimension. The visible destruction of a highly secured facility, protected by layered S-400 Panzer and Tor systems, sent a stark message. Even premier defense networks are vulnerable to low-cost coordinated UAV assaults. Military Watch magazine described this as a demonstration of asymmetric leverage, where intelligence, timing, and expendable platforms achieve strategic objectives without traditional combat. The question for viewers becomes, if such critical dual-use nodes can be neutralized with relatively small UAV swarms, how will Russia rethink the protection of key logistics and energy infrastructure in the future? As flames consumed Feodosia, the next phase of the campaign threatened to reverberate beyond Crimea, signaling a broader recalibration of operational planning across the Black Sea and southern Ukraine. What happens when a single strike halts an entire military front and disrupts civilian life simultaneously? The aftermath of the Feodosia terminal assault was immediate and catastrophic. Russian military units in southern Crimea faced fuel rationing for tanks, armored vehicles, and transport trucks, grinding operational mobility to a near halt. Military analysts from Defense News highlighted that the incapacitation of a dual-use facility magnified the economic and operational cost. Millions of dollars in fuel supplies were lost, and contingency reserves were insufficient to sustain armored brigades or air sorties. Within hours, Russian command struggled to reroute logistics, revealing cracks in the southern front that Ukrainian forces had long anticipated. Civilian consequences were equally stark. Gas stations across the peninsula reported empty pumps, electricity distribution faltered, and food supply chains slowed. Local news and social media captured long lines of residents waiting for fuel, while panic spread amid continuous air raid sirens. DW reported that daily life in occupied Crimea had been transformed overnight, illustrating how modern warfare blurs the lines between military and civilian targets when dual-use infrastructure is involved. Experts suggest that such operations can erode the enemy's morale and weaken propaganda narratives. In this case, Moscow's claims of Crimea as an impenetrable fortress were visibly contradicted. Economically, the strike sent shockwaves beyond Crimea. Analysts at the Kiev School of Economics calculated that interrupting 250,000 tons of fuel storage could reduce Southern Front operational capacity by 30–50% for at least 10 days, translating into millions of dollars in lost combat capability and transport inefficiency. Additionally, delays in Caliber missile launches from the Black Sea Fleet disrupted patrol rotations, leaving NATO observers particularly attentive to shifts in regional naval power. NATO intelligence reports, corroborated by Reuters, noted that such disruptions allowed Allied forces to reassess Black Sea operational readiness and may influence broader strategic calculations in Eastern Europe. The strategic implication was clear. The attack wasn't just a tactical victory. It signaled a new era of asymmetric warfare where UAVs and decoys could induce systemic failures at minimal cost. A former U.S. Air Force officer quoted by Military Watch magazine remarked, "This is a textbook example of combining intelligence, electronic warfare, and precision strikes to achieve outsized impact, a lesson for every modern military." The operation forced Russia to confront vulnerabilities in energy transport and munitions networks, simultaneously illustrating the domino effect of modern kinetic strikes. As the smoke and fire from Feodosia still climbed into the Crimean night sky, questions lingered over Russia's ability to recover and maintain operational tempo. Could the southern front stabilize in the coming weeks? Or would Ukraine's continued targeting of dual-use infrastructure keep Russian forces paralyzed? The stage was set for the next critical phase, testing the resilience of Russian air defenses and the vulnerability of other strategic nodes in Crimea. How can even the most advanced air defense systems be rendered vulnerable to a low-cost swarm? Russia's layered integrated air defense system IADS across Crimea was designed to be nearly impenetrable, a network of S-400 Triumph radars at the apex supported by Panzer and Tor M1 batteries in lower and mid-tier coverage. In theory, this multi-layered system should detect, track, and eliminate any aerial threat. In practice, the October 6th operation revealed critical flaws. Ukraine's decoy drones and expendable UAVs forced the system to expend millions in interceptors on low-value targets, creating gaps that were exploited by the main strike force. According to a NATO tactical analyst, this demonstrates the concept of economic asymmetry in modern warfare. A few $1,000s worth of UAVs can compel an opponent to waste millions of dollars and critical munitions. The engagement over Feodosia highlighted both technological and doctrinal weaknesses. While Russian operators believed they were intercepting the primary threats, the main UAVs operating at 30-50 meters above the Black Sea navigated below radar horizons. Krasuka-4 jammers intended to disrupt GPS signals proved ineffective against UAVs programmed with advanced inertial navigation systems, ring laser gyroscopes, and preloaded satellite imagery. Even when some drones were shot down, the remaining strike assets completed their missions with precision. Defense News reported that this exposed the limitations of static air defense doctrines when facing multi-platform coordinated attacks designed to exploit predictable patterns. The concept of expendable UAVs forced Russia into a war of attrition without direct engagement. The interceptors destroyed dozens of decoys, but this had minimal impact on the strategic outcome. Each downed drone represented a small Ukrainian investment, while every missile spent was a costly depletion of Russian resources. Military Watch magazine highlighted this as a pivotal case study in asymmetric warfare, demonstrating that layered defenses must adapt to economic and tactical realities rather than relying solely on technology. The attack also triggered broader geopolitical ripples. NATO officials assessed that such vulnerabilities could redefine operational assumptions in the Black Sea, forcing reconsideration of Russian air defense strategies and prompting Allied forces to analyze Ukraine's integrated approach to decoy deployment timing and precision strikes. Analysts at the Royal United Services Institute (RUSI) noted that the operation underscored the potential of inexpensive unmanned systems to challenge high-value targets, changing how Western militaries evaluate cost-effective deterrence against peer adversaries. Yet the psychological impact was perhaps equally significant. Russia's narrative of an invulnerable Crimea was publicly undermined with images of burning fuel tanks and disrupted logistics circulating globally. For Western strategists, this was a live demonstration of how intelligence deception and multi-platform precision can produce strategic effects beyond mere destruction. The critical question: now, how will Russia adapt its air defense doctrine to protect dual-use infrastructure while maintaining operational readiness? The answers will shape the next phase of Ukraine's campaign, where precision deception and strategic patience continue to dictate the pace of modern warfare. Could Ukraine's operation in Crimea redefine the future of asymmetric warfare worldwide? The October 6th strikes demonstrated that small, cost-effective UAVs, when integrated with intelligence and precise timing, could penetrate some of the most formidable air defense networks on the planet. Western analysts, including those from Defense News and the International Institute for Strategic Studies, emphasized that this operation signals a shift. The weaponization of intelligence and deception may rival traditional firepower in strategic impact. NATO's planners have taken note, recognizing that the rapid deployment of disposable drones and missile systems can create systemic shocks, forcing adversaries into reactive postures and resource overextension. Ukraine's success relied on a combination of elements rarely executed in such harmony. Signals intelligence identified the exact location, engagement frequency, and reaction time of Russian batteries. Coordinated decoys forced high-value interceptors to be wasted, while the main strike force, Bobber Peklo, and Scythe UAVs synchronized across hundreds of kilometers to attack logistics hubs, ammunition depots, and the Feodosia oil terminal with millimeter precision. Military Watch magazine highlighted that the timing and multi-platform integration represent a four-dimensional battle plan, making traditional decision-making cycles for defenders almost impossible. Observers note that such integration of speed, electronic warfare, and inertial navigation is now a critical benchmark for next-generation combat operations. The geopolitical implications extend beyond Crimea. The strike demonstrated vulnerabilities in Russian dual-use infrastructure, signaling to NATO and US policymakers that critical nodes can be targeted without direct ground engagement. This has potential implications for deterrence strategies and the deployment of advanced air defense systems across Europe. Analysts from Al Jazeera and DW report that Western intelligence has begun reassessing force posture and the distribution of layered defenses, emphasizing adaptability over rigid technology reliance. Moreover, the economic dimension cannot be understated. Millions of dollars in wasted interceptors and destroyed fuel, ammunition, and rail assets illustrate how asymmetric tactics can produce disproportionate strategic effects at minimal cost. Western experts also highlight the psychological and informational impact. The visible destruction of a heavily defended facility, along with disrupted logistics, erodes both morale and propaganda narratives. As Jane's Defense Weekly observed, this is a case study in strategic leverage through asymmetric operational design. The question remains, how will Russia recalibrate its IADS doctrine, its dual-use infrastructure protections, and its strategic calculus in response to increasingly sophisticated, low-cost UAV operations? The answer will influence not only the trajectory of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but also the evolving norms of high-intensity conflict in densely defended theaters. As Ukraine consolidates its lessons from this campaign, NATO and US observers anticipate a future in which precision intelligence and expendable unmanned systems dominate strategic planning. The next phase of engagements will likely test how resilient Russian air defenses can be when confronted with persistent multi-domain pressure. Could these operations foreshadow a new era where UAV swarms and asymmetric strategy outweigh conventional firepower, reshaping global military doctrine forever? The Black Sea has become a proving ground, and the world is watching closely.